The last words my mother said to me before everything changed were, "We're cutting you off completely." She said it like it was a deep cleanse, like getting rid of me was a purge that would finally let the family breathe easier. I didn't argue. I didn't cry or plead. I just stood there, quiet. They did. My phone buzzed. "Ma'am," said Peter, my financial advisor, "your company just crossed $69 million, 0 cents. You're officially over next quarter's projection." That moment, so absurd, so beautifully timed. I'll never forget it. My mother turned pale. My brother's fork paused midair. And I realized something so crystal clear it almost made me laugh. They thought they'd erased me from the family, but I'd already written myself into an entirely different story. It had been nearly a year since I'd last stepped into that house. When the group text landed, "Family meeting, Sunday, be on time," there wasn't even a hi, just commands. Still, like a fool hoping the rules had changed, I showed up 5 minutes early, holding a pie I'd baked from scratch. I even tied it up with twine, like the kind you see in cozy Pinterest photos. Deep down, I wanted it to mean something. I wanted them to see effort and say, "Thanks for coming." The house looked the same on the outside. The lemon-scented cleaner still hit me as soon as I stepped inside. The kind Mom swore made everything feel fresh. But the air? Cold. Heavy. The kind of stillness that makes your skin itch. I walked into the living room and stopped. There were 4 chairs. 3 were clustered together, the kind with sturdy arms and nice, firm cushions. Mom, my brother Eli, and my sister Miriam had already taken those. The 4th? A rickety folding chair shoved next to the bookshelf, like someone remembered me at the last second and yanked something out of the garage. That one was mine. I sat carefully, not a single hi, not even from Miriam, who used to sneak into my bed crying when we were kids. Mum cleared her throat. "Let's get started." That was it. No thanks for coming, no have you been, just straight into business, like a quarterly review. "We've decided it's best for everyone," she said, smoothing out her blouse like it was armor. "Going forward, we're cutting all financial ties. You won't be included in any more family discussions or decisions. You're free to live your life." Clinical. Final. Like she was removing a tumor. And proud of it. Dad wouldn't even look at me. Eli smirked like he'd just watched a TikTok roast. Miriam? Legs crossed, smug and serene. My mind went quiet. Then memory surged in, rushing through like a flood. Like the time I paid Eli's DUI lawyer twice, because Dad said, "He's just a kid, he needs a second chance." Or when Miriam, post-divorce and broke, lived in my apartment for 3 months, rent-free, crying into my pillows while I fed her dog and paid her credit card minimums. Or how Mom used to sneer at my art studio, "Your little paint projects don't pay the bills, sweetie." She never called it a business, never asked what I was building, just rolled her eyes at my stained fingers like they were signs of failure. But I never made a scene. Back then, I thought being loyal meant being quiet. I swallowed hurt like it was holy. So I stood up and reached for my coat. That's when Peter called. I answered in front of them all. "Serena," he said, practically breathless, "we just crossed $69 million, 0 cents in valuation. You're officially past target. Congratulations." I ended the call with a simple, "Thank you." Then I turned to look at them. All of them. One by one. "Well," I said, sliding into my coat, "looks like you just cut off your biggest investor." Their faces? Pure disbelief, and I walked out without another word. But what they didn't know, what they never imagined, was that I'd been preparing for that moment for years. Not with shouting matches, not with ultimatums, with planning. That night, I drove straight back to my studio, not home, not to some friend's house to cry, my studio. It smelled like oil paint, linseed, and ambition. I didn't turn on the overhead lights, just the soft amber glow of the drying lamps. It was better that way. I moved through the space slowly, letting my fingers trail along the tables and frames and half-finished canvases. This was my cathedral, my sanctuary. No one ever came here, no one ever asked about it, and I preferred it that way. They hadn't just cut me off that night, they'd been cutting me down for years. I thought of high school graduation. Eli had crashed his car into a tree the week before. They skipped my ceremony to attend some alumni fundraiser at his college. I walked that stage alone. Later, I got a voicemail. "So proud of you, honey. We'll celebrate next week." That celebration never happened. When I got accepted into a small local art institute, my dream school, I showed Mom the letter, hands shaking with hope. She didn't even look up from her crossword. Real artists end up broke, Zorina. Why not accounting? I didn't fight. I just folded the letter and tucked it into a drawer. I still have it, next to dried petals and unpaid receipts. I sat on the cold concrete floor of my studio that night, back resting against the supply closet door, knees drawn to my chest. Everything around me hummed with quiet defiance. Unfinished canvases, splattered drop cloths, old sketches taped to the wall like battle flags. This place was never just a studio. It was the only room in my life where I was allowed to be the loudest thing in it, where color and chaos and ambition didn't need to apologize. They had spent years telling me I was too much, too emotional, too dramatic. But here, I was finally just enough. I remembered the way my mother used to dismiss my passion. "Your little hobby," she'd say, like I was finger painting on the kitchen wall instead of running a profitable creative business. And then there was Miriam, with her carefully masked jabs wrapped in silk. "Don't make people feel small just because you're doing well, Z. Families don't compete." But it never felt like we weren't competing. It felt like I was always losing, even when I was clearly ahead. Because every one of my wins had to be quiet. Every success tucked away so no one else would feel bruised by it. There was a time, years ago, when I nearly co-signed a mortgage for my parents. They claimed it was temporary, that Dad's pension would kick in soon, but something inside me tugged. I filed paperwork quietly, removing myself from the agreement before they could finalize it. They never knew. The next month, they tried to refinance the home in my name. When the bank denied it, they blamed a clerical error. I stayed silent. That was the first time I realized power didn't have to be loud. Power could be strategic, quiet, calculated. That night, I opened the bottom drawer of my drafting desk and pulled out the maroon folder I'd labeled in block letters, PH Phase 3. Inside were contracts, financial transfers, trust paperwork, a roadmap of my exit. Every move I made to free myself, every dollar rerouted, every barrier erected to keep them out. I'd started years ago, moving revenue to a separate LLC, cutting their access to shared accounts, hiring legal counsel they thought were my friends from grad school. I had protected myself slowly, quietly, with precision. One of the documents bore the date from 18 months prior. It moved all revenue from my studio into a holding company. Another showed a legal trust I'd formed, one with strict limitations on who could access what and under what conditions. I flipped to the NDAs, consultants, financial planners. A lawyer who once attended a family barbecue, posing as my college friend, just to hear how they talked about me behind my back. All of them sworn to silence, all of them worth every cent. I leaned back in my chair, breathing in the smell of linseed and varnish. They always thought I was fragile because I didn't yell, because I didn't fight the way they did, with volume and drama and threats, but I had learned something far more dangerous. Silence is a strategy. And if you use it right, it becomes a scalpel. The final page in the folder was a checklist, handwritten, a little smudged from an old coffee spill. Step 1, remove name from mortgage. Check. Step 2, consolidate income accounts. Check. Step 3, secure long-term legal representation. Check. Step 4, Build fallback asset reserves. Check. Step 5. Severe emotional ties in progress. I didn't smile. This wasn't revenge. I wasn't trying to hurt them. I was simply untangling myself from a legacy that had wrapped around my throat like a vine. I needed distance. I needed to breathe without checking if someone else approved. As I tucked the folder away, my phone buzzed. A text from Miriam. Save the date. Eli's wedding. You're expected. Don't make it weird. I stared at it, blinking. Not because I was surprised, but because the audacity still had the power to knock the wind out of me. After everything, they still expected me to play along. They still thought I'd show up, smile, and pretend that I hadn't been erased from their lives on purpose. That message, that event, it wasn't a celebration, it was a test. A reminder that they could drag me back into the role they'd cast me in, the side character. The reliable extra. The girl with the checkbook and the quiet mouth. I didn't reply. Instead, I started preparing. The envelope arrived 2 days later. Thick, cream-colored with embossed lettering and gold trim. Inside, an invitation to a vow renewal. Not Eli's wedding as I'd expected, but a celebration of enduring love for my parents. Formal attire required. Arrive alone. That line struck me like a slap. Alone. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a warning. I recognized the handwriting. It was Miriam's. She had orchestrated the whole thing. I took a photo of the invite and sent it to my cousin Amber. We weren't close, but she had a mouth that loosened after 2 glasses of wine. 2 hours later, she replied with one sentence. It's not a celebration, it's a message. Be careful. That night, I lay in bed, turning Amber's words over and over in my mind. Be careful. I hadn't RSVP'd. I hadn't called anyone. But I packed a small suitcase and booked a modest hotel outside the main resort in Savannah. A muted gray pantsuit went into my bag. No florals, no pastels. I wasn't going to be their photo prop. I wasn't there to be palatable. I was going to witness. The drive from Atlanta was calm. I cracked the windows, let in the breeze, let my thoughts stretch wide. When I stopped at a rest area halfway there, I checked Mom's social feed. Garden brunches, polished plates, photos of the flower girl's custom dress. There was no mention of me, not even a whisper. That silence, it was louder than any insult. By the time I pulled into the venue's parking lot, my heart was no longer racing. I wasn't nervous. I was detached, clear. I didn't come to fight. I came to see who they really were. The venue was exactly what I expected, charming in a way that felt performative, like someone had searched classy Southern celebration on Pinterest and ordered everything in bulk. White wood everywhere, twinkle lights strung over a manicured garden, faux rustic signage pointing toward the ceremony. I walked up to the check-in table at the front, gave my name. The young woman there didn't look up, just handed me a sealed envelope and said, "Side entry. You're not on the reception list. No surprise there." I nodded once and moved along the edge of the crowd, blending in with the potted ferns and forgotten signage. The space for the ceremony had been staged like a play. An arch wrapped in white hydrangeas, chairs lined up in perfect rows, classical music playing from a hidden speaker. I found my seat easily, back row near the caterer's staging area. No one greeted me. No one even acknowledged my arrival, except for a whisper I caught from 2 women behind me. She actually came. I didn't turn around. Miriam took the mic first. Her voice had that polished softness she saved for speeches and passive-aggressive apologies. "To the family that never wavered," she said with a smile, "and to the siblings who stood by, not needing to make it about themselves." The audience gave a polite laugh. I watched my mother raise her glass in theatrical agreement. Everyone looked pleased, smug even, as if nothing had ever cracked beneath their glossy image. Then came the slideshow, childhood photos flickering across a screen. Birthday parties, beach vacations, Eli's Little League team, Miriam's ballet recital, family dinners around a glowing fireplace. There was a photo from my 6th birthday. Me in a yellow dress, holding a butterfly-shaped cake. But my face was blurred, so blurred it looked intentional, like someone had tried to erase me with a digital brush and forgot to finish the job. I sat there frozen, not angry, just confirmed. My name wasn't mentioned in a single toast, not one shared story, not even a joke at my expense. I wasn't a ghost in that room. I was a hole they'd covered in fresh grass and told everyone not to step on. At some point, my mother leaned toward Marcus and whispered something with a smirk. Then she looked directly at me, not with anger, not with shame, just acknowledgement. She saw me. She just didn't care. I stood to leave. No dramatic sigh, no glance back. But just as I passed the buffet line, someone, I still don't know who, called out, "Oh, are you gonna pull the poor me card again?" I didn't turn around. I just kept walking. My heels clicking against the polished stone was the only response they'd get. Outside, dusk had started to settle over the marsh. The air was warm and still, heavy with the scent of cut roses and artificial joy. I walked straight to my car, opened the trunk, and retrieved my tablet. I sat behind the wheel, pulled up the secured folder labeled Scheduled, and tapped one email. Subject, check your inbox. It went out to 5 people, no explanation, just a file. One I had been curating quietly for years. They thought this vow renewal was their power move. They didn't realize it was mine. By the time I got back to my hotel, the thread had already started buzzing. The family group chat lit up like wildfire. "Zorina, what did you do? Is this real? Call me, please!" But I didn't answer. I changed into my robe, made tea, and watched the city lights shimmer below my window. My hands didn't shake. My breath didn't catch. I just watched it unfold. The file I sent was a scanned copy of an amended estate plan from my grandmother, one that quietly named me as the primary heir of the family's Florida property and the controlling interest in the trust that had supported every luxury my siblings ever bragged about. It had been signed, notarized, witnessed 2 years before she passed. The same document they had all pretended never existed. I found it 6 months after she died, tucked inside a sealed envelope under her hospice pillow. "Don't let them bury your light," she whispered to me that night. "They'll try. But I've already made it harder for them." The messages kept rolling in. Eli's voicemail was short and sharp. "This isn't funny. Where did you get that file?" Miriam's texts were more polished, full sentences trying to reclaim authority. "This is very serious. I'm sure you didn't mean to cause harm. Let's discuss offline." I ignored them all. Then came the voice I'd been waiting for, Frank Holstead, our grandmother's estate attorney. His message was brief. "Yes, the amendment is valid. It was signed, notarized, and never revoked. Any disputes must go through legal channels." My father finally broke his silence in the chat. "Impossible." My mother replied next, "It was supposed to be buried." That's when I leaned back and exhaled for the first time in days. I typed a reply. "For someone you all said was just emotional, I seem to remember legal timelines better than any of you." Then, I did something I hadn't done in months. I turned off notifications, all of them. I brewed another cup of tea and sat back at my desk, opening a blank document titled ZAM Foundation, LLC, Charter Draft V1. The first line was easy. "This charter acknowledges Zorina A. Moore as the sole founder and principal beneficiary of the Leona Adele Moore Legacy Trust." I wrote it without hesitation. This wasn't revenge. This was clarity. This was naming every silent moment they tried to erase me, every holiday I spent alone, every success I had to dim. They wanted a performance. They staged a celebration. What they got was the beginning of my independence, spelled out in corporate law and legal authority. As I typed the second clause, something unexpected happened. A name appeared in the Google Docs collaborator field. I froze. One name, no profile photo, just the letters. Am. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. And just like that, the next chapter began. Not with applause or closure, but with a silent shadow slipping into the room. Let me know if you'd like a continuation or a new project.